Okay. I think it seems to think that I'm actually running. There we go. Okay. There, we've got some viewers. There we go. Now it's working. Spectacular. This is all still a little bit new to me, getting all this stuff to work, especially with a pre-planned, you know, just starting to stream sort of willy-nilly. That's one thing, but now to you know, put it in there ahead of time so people can kind of, I'm looking over here, there were people chatting, you know, way before the thing started. So that's kind of interesting, but it seems to be working now, so that's cool. And I can see that there are people in the chat. I can see that there are 18, 19 different people right now watching, so that's cool. Hopefully some more will join. That'll be neat. I hope that you're having a good Sunday, whether it's a morning or an afternoon or whatever. Over here it's morning. It's Mother's Day, and later on I'll be going to see my mother-in-law and then my mother after that. So, but this time works very well, at least for me, being able to usually get in and do some chat and things like that with everybody. Gummy Nerd says that the early bird gets the worm, and that's, from what I understand, generally true, which is why sometimes I don't get too many worms, frankly. I mean, really, I don't know. Do I really want worms? Worms are sort of gross, you know, but it's, I think, a euphemism. So, I hope everybody's been doing well since the last chat on Tuesday. I hope people, it seems as if people have enjoyed the video that I did on Friday about MDF terrain and why you should be interested and why you should think about it. It got a ton of views. Normally, when I wake up in the morning on Friday, because the video goes live at 2 a.m. my time, so when the video goes live, people start watching it generally overseas because it's pretty, you know, late at night / early in the morning here in the United States. And by the time I usually get up in the morning, there are usually 300 or 400 views already. But there were almost 1,000 views when I got up on Friday. Now, admittedly, I got up late on Friday, but yeah. So people did evidently enjoy the video. It's already over 3,000, so that's pretty cool. Excuse me. So anyway, if you paid attention to the title and if you looked at the thumbnail, I did mention about my skeleton horde. So, okay, when I first started playing Age of Sigmar, I decided to go Chaos, and it was partially because I really like Nurgle stuff generally. So I went with Nurgle stuff, but with also a plenty of like just general Chaos stuff. I went with, and if you've seen pictures and things like that in my, I don't know, social stuff, you've seen pictures of my Chaos Warriors, which used to be called Warriors of Chaos, but now they're just called Chaos Warriors. You saw, let's see, what else is just a standard unit. There's some Spawn in there. There's some older units and things like that, but I've still also added in things like, you know, Putrid Blake Kings. I've added in things like what they now call the Lord of Plagues, which used to be known as the Nurgle Chaos Lord. Rotbringer Sorcerer, which is an old model because he's still metal, actually. That's how old he is. And then I started to add some more kind of stuff in there. And also, you know, the goat people. And then started moving some Skaven and that kind of stuff into that army, which I haven't painted any of the Skaven yet, but I built some. I'm going to be painting them soon. But I built and painted a relatively small force that works out well. Some Varengard, got a bunch of different stuff. So it works out nicely that way. And it's a nice little core force to start with. The upside to using a small core force is that it gives you a nice starting point. You can play some games, but then, at least in my opinion, you can then go on to building another small core force and start doing some of that kind of stuff. And then the upside is that, at least in my mind, you then have 2 core forces that you can use to basically play with somebody else who's not necessarily in on the game yet. You can say, hey, you can use my, whatevers, and I'll use these guys, and then you can kind of go from there, which is helpful. So that's kind of what I'm doing right now. I'm not finished with my Chaos, my Nurgle force. What I'm doing right now is I'm starting a secondary force as cheaply as I can, because that's kind of what I like to do, and I'm going from there. And again, like I said, if you've paid attention to the thumbnail and to the description of this video, you can tell that it's a Death army from the Grand Alliance Death, and I'm mainly going with, for the most part, Vampire Knight type stuff as opposed to the Tomb King stuff. But there's a little bit of Tomb King in there, which I'll explain in a little while. So, let's see here. Stephen, or Stefan, I apologize if I got it wrong, says, evening from South Korea, Adam. Great to see another one of your live chats up. Really enjoy your vids. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. It's astounding to me to see that, just, I don't know. I mean, obviously it makes sense, but it's just so crazy that on the other side of the world, it's like a whole different day, or it's just a completely different time. I pretty much just woke up here, took a shower, and sat down here. And, in other parts of the world, people are pretty much prepared to go to bed. The Witch King of Angmar says, I have a Vampire Count army. Well, I appreciate you, and they are great. I'm looking forward to it as well. And I'm going to show you guys some of the stuff as well. YouTube Newbie 01 says, hey, Uncle Adam. Howdy. So, all right. So, how did I end up going with a Vampire Count army? Well, it all started because, and probably some of you have seen the video that I've done called The Real Use for Liquid Green Stuff. In that video, I talked about the real use for liquid green stuff and explained to you how I thought it's a great texturing agent, and I worked on a model which was the Cairn Wraith, which, if you're familiar with fantasy at all, the Cairn Wraith is this really super cool model. It's like a ghosty kind of guy. He's just barely balancing like on the tip of his cloak, and he's got a big what do you call it, like a scythe, and it's just a great looking model. And so I bought one because I just really wanted to paint it, and then I used it for that video and went from there. So I had that guy. And then I bought a Necromancer because, again, I think he's a great sculpt. And so I did some texturing on his cloak and did that stuff, and it was a lot of fun. And then I bought a box of skeletons years ago, box of 10 skeletons, and I thought, okay, cool, I'll kind of go from there. And I just wanted to use them for other games. I was going to basically use those figures for Song of Blades and Heroes, which is a game that I like to teach people how to play when I go to conventions. It works out really well for that. So I had these guys. I had like a Necromancer and this ghosty dude and some skeletons, and I wasn't planning on using them for fantasy or for anything like that. And then along came Age of Sigmar, and then I was looking at those guys, and I'm like, those guys would be kind of a cool basis for my next army. So that's kind of how I decided to start going with these Death Army guys. I'm getting a hello from London, hello from Sweden, hello from Scotland. Let's see here. People are asking about the Tomb Kings and if they're kind of weak in comparison. Hello from Sunny Blackpool. I don't know that they're necessarily weak. I don't know that anything is really weak in Age of Sigmar because, frankly, everything's actually kind of a bit overpowered in Age of Sigmar. But because everything's overpowered, it doesn't really matter that, some stuff isn't, because it all is. It's kind of like that thing from The Incredibles. When everybody's got superpowers, then nobody has superpowers, which I'm pretty sure that I'm paraphrasing here, but that's basically the way that works. Let's see here. Are the bases still 25 or 32? Actually, for the skeletons that I'm about to show you, the bases are still 25, which I prefer for smaller figures, but I like the 32s on some other figures. So basically what happened was I thought, okay, I've got this very, very small starter for a Death Army, and so I want to start going from that. So I looked at the Start Collecting box from Games Workshop. Now, This is crazy, frankly. Okay, so the start collecting boxes, these boxes, they make them for 40K stuff. They make them for, this is going to be hard to fit in here, but you can see, so here's your skeleton horde. Start collecting your skeleton horde. And admittedly, 10 skeletons and 5 guys on a horse and a big dude is kind of not necessarily a horde, but it's, it's what they call it. So it's 16 miniatures in here. And it's $85. So at first I was like, well, geez, that's not, I don't know, is that enough? I don't know. I didn't know anything. So I started doing some research on it. So up here, they tell you about Arkin the Black. They're like, oh, you'll get Arkin the Black, who's this big dude here. And then you'll get 5 Black Knights and 10 skeletons. I'm like, okay, cool. So you get Arkin the Black. So I go online and I start looking at Arkin the Black. Well, the kit, if you buy Arkin the Black separately, he comes in 3 different configurations. You can build Arkin the Black, you can build Neferata the Bloody, or of the I don't know, something like that, or you can build Manfred Mann's Earthband. You can build Manfred. This guy, Arkin, and Neferata are both very Tomb King looking, very Egyptian, kind of crazy shenanigans going on there. Whereas Manfred is very Vampire Counts, which is cool. So this kit, if you buy it separately on Games Workshop site, is $80 American, okay? But you can build it 3 different ways. So I'm like, okay, well, since they just keep talking on the box for this, that you can build Arkin the Black, they don't mention the other 2, that must be why it's cheaper, because why would they put an $80 kit in an $85 box? Doesn't make any sense. So I'm assuming they only gave you the parts for this dude. And then they give you the counts, and they give you the skeletons. Now, if you just sit down and you look at the actual prices of the stuff that's in this particular box, at least in Skeleton Hordes, I haven't run numbers on any of the other ones yet, but if you look at this box, okay, so this guy's $80 normally retail, if you get the guy who can do all 3 things. The skeleton, or the Black Knights, they're $33. And the skeletons are $24.75. I added that up before. That comes to $137.75. So $137.75, and you're getting this box for $85. Now, like I said, well, okay, you only get the ability to build Arkin the Black, you don't get the other stuff, so I guess it makes sense. Then I opened the box, which I'm going to do here. So people have been asking me for years, oh, you should do unboxing videos, and I've never been really super interested in doing unboxing videos, but here I am, look at this, doing an unboxing video. So, I'm not going to smell the box, I'm not that kind of guy particularly. Here's the thing that's most interesting to me. Okay, so here's the instructions for putting together Arkin the Black. But then there's also the instructions for putting together Manfred von Karstein or Neferata, Mortarch of Blood. So I was like, now wait a minute. Let me see if I get this straight. So you gave me the full-blown $80 kit in an $85 box. That's kind of crazy, isn't it? Doesn't that seem so? So yeah, here's the full-blown instructions for building, whatever dude you're going to build, and I'm going to build Manfred, I'll tell you that right now, because I think he's really cool looking. But so all the parts, everything is in here to build the $80 kit in an $85 box. Plus then you still get 10 skeletons, which you can either build sword and shield or spear and shield. And you also get the Black Knights, which are basically skeleton knight dudes. So I don't know. I'm thinking about doing an episode and just trying to go through and run the numbers on the start collecting boxes, because it's ridiculous how, you're saving, I'm not great at math, but $137, and you're saving, from $85. That's a great savings. And it's a very interesting thing, I think, for GW to be doing these days. So here's the 3, well, it's technically 2 sprues for the what do you call them? The Black Knights. Now, if you were to buy this in the normal box, they would have clipped here and here and here, and you would have gotten 3 sprues that are the normal kind of small sprue size. I'm sorry, you can't really see it very well. I'm in a weird spot here. But you get everything you need, so you'd have those 3 sprues to make 5 Black Knights. Here are the aforementioned 25mm bases for your skeletons we were talking about just a minute ago. So you get those guys. In here, there's this thing that's like, oh, hey, well, since you're going this direction, you should maybe look at, getting the app, which I actually admit the app is awesome. You should really look into getting the app for your phone or your tablet or whatever if you can. You should get some more Black Knights, why not? Okay, sure. Or you could get some Graveguard. Well, those guys are kind of cool. Or you could get a White King, which I'll talk about in a little bit here. White King, moving this way, right there, White King. So, and then on the back, they give you what they call a battalion. Okay, so if you use Arkan the Black, a unit of Black Knights, and a unit of Skeleton Warriors, then you get March of the Dead, which is Arkan's Skeleton Guard are implacable in the advance. In your hero phase, Arkan the Black and all units from his Skeleton Guard that are within 9 inches of him can make a move of up to... I'm sliding, going the wrong way. Can make a move up to 4 inches as if it were the movement phase. Models cannot run as part of this move. Okay, that's cool. So, this War Scroll Battalion comes in the box, which is neat. I like that they kind of give you some of that bonus stuff. I'm not going to be using it because I'm going to be building Manfred instead of Arkan the Black, but, that's cool. So then we're getting into... These are the big honkin'... These 2 sprues here... Oh, that's trippy. All right, so these 2 sprues here are what build either Arkan, Neferata, or Manfred. So that's all the stuff that you're going to need for that. And then this little piece here, which would in most situations, again, they would clip here and put it in a smaller box. This is your 10 skeletons, okay? And then last but not least, you've got this base that your big dude's going to go on, and you've got smaller bases for your Black Knights. In here, we've got how to build the Black Knights. And it looks as if you may be able to build them as Hex Wraiths, too, which is sort of cool. I don't even particularly know what the stats are on the Hex Wraiths, but I might look into that just because it's something that you'll be able to do. And then here's the Skeleton Warriors. So that's very interesting to me, the fact that, that you can really go ahead and do all this stuff, and they give you all that stuff in this $85 box. It drives me, I'm astounded at what they're doing there. So, let's see. Let me try to answer some questions. I was yammering on there for a bit. Let's see here. Blimey says it's called a hook. Yeah, I get that. I understand. It's to kind of get you collecting. That totally makes sense. And I think that it's important that people sort of have that ability, because GW for a long time has been saying, hey, we want to get more people into the big... Well, people have been saying to GW, you really want to get more people into the game, and they seem to be understanding it now, hopefully. So... that's kind of what they're doing there. Twisted Bishop says you also get the Hex Wraith options, I think. I think you're right as well, so I'm going to look into that and look at the app and see what the differences between the Hex Wraith and the Black Knights are, and which one I prefer to build or to use or field or whatever. So that'll be cool. Let's see here. It's like supersizing your fries and drink. No, I don't disagree. So yeah, for the Death Grand Alliance, seems like easy savings to just buy 2 starter sets. Yeah, because there's one that's also a little bit more... I think there's another one that's a little... There's 2 Death ones. There's the Skeleton Horde and the Malcontents? Maleficents? Something like that. Yeah, the Start Collecting box for Lizardmen and the Carnosaur, which comes in the Start Collecting box, are the same price. I've heard that too. So it's kind of crazy that they're giving you these really cool big figures for really inexpensive in comparison. The new one for the Flesh Eater Quartz is crazy. I haven't taken a look at it, but that totally makes sense. All the boxes average between $30 and $60 in savings. Yeah, I think that's the case as well, from what I understand. This one was 85 to, yeah, at least creep it up on 60. Let's see here. Drug dealer always gives the first one for free. Well, they're just giving it cheaper. I get that, yeah. But I think it's great because honestly, in the past, they've barely done stuff like that. So now they're like, you know what? If we want to get people into the game, we need to give them a good point to get in. There were some starters here and there. I mean, if you look at the starter for Age of Sigmar, where you get the Stormcast dudes and the Corn Bros, that's cool. I mean, that's a good savings if you buy that box for however much it costs. I think think I got mine for $100, but my local store has a tendency to do it for 20% off. Yeah. Alex Williams says that he got the Seraphon starter box. Why would anyone ever buy a Carnosaur separately ever again? Well, that's a good question. Yeah, and if you order them from your local game store, then it's another 10-20% savings. My local game store sold it to me at regular retail, and he usually sells most stuff at like discount, but honestly, like nobody that I know is like, oh man, well, aren't you gonna get the discount on this? Because you're already getting such a savings. And it helps him because he's able to make a little bit more profit, since on most stuff he gives a 20% discount. So let's see here. Blimey is interested to know how much of a loss, if any, Games Workshop is taking to make the Start Collecting boxes possible. Yeah, that's a good question. I'll be interested to know if there's an actual loss involved or not. I don't know that there's particularly a loss. I think they're not making as much profit that way. But if they're selling more of them and lots of people are buying them, I know they're moving pretty well at my local store, then I think that probably it's most likely that... that they're just selling more volume, so they're probably making more money that way. So, excuse me. Let's see here. Just generally curious about the production cost on GW figures. Yeah, so everybody is the same. I'm building an undead or death army as well. I will be buying that new box set. Round bases for the win. Yeah, I have to say I really prefer the look of round bases. That kind of gets me to my next point. The second way that I'm starting to build my Death Army is that, again, my friend who owns the local comic shop, he has a tendency to buy armies from people. People come in and say, hey, I'll sell you this army, or I'll do for trade or for store credit or whatever. And so he flips them on eBay and stuff, and he makes some profit that way or whatever. Well, he sent me a text recently, and he's like, hey, I was digging through my storage and I found something that you might be interested in. So I came in, and he had a skeleton army that was predominantly Tomb Kings, admittedly, but he had this skeleton army that was already built and primed that he had purchased from someone years ago. And he's like, I thought you might be interested in this since you're getting this whole skeleton horde thing. So I started looking through that army. They're downstairs. I didn't bring them up here. I ended up walking out of there with, let's see. Now, they're Tomb Kings, but the standard skeletons for Tomb Kings don't generally have a ton of Egyptian-looking stuff on them. And in my mind, if you paint them properly, if you paint them and don't use any gold, and don't even use any brass, but you just use like silvers for like iron, and you put a lot of wash on it and stuff like that, like some of those guys will have helmets, but they're not too Egyptian-looking. Some of them, they all have really big, more like tower shields. But if you paint them right, I don't think they come across necessarily exactly like Tomb Kings. I have now 2 groups of 20 skeletons, sadly on square bases, so I'm going to have to rebase them because I want to do that. But I got them for super cheap from my local store owner, and they're spear and shield instead of sword and shield. The upside to spear and shield then is you get a 2-inch reach. So if you've got a whole horde of them and they go up against somebody, the guys who are like 1 layer back can still hit because they have the spears, so they're poking past their friends, I'm assuming, and doing the stabbings and whatnot. So, yeah, so that kind of stuff is cool. So I've got like 2 groups of 20 of those with the bannerman and the horn guy, with the music and all that stuff. And yeah, Tomb Kings can make cool Vampire Counts troops, and I really think you just have to paint them right, and that's basically it, because they don't have much else in the way of trappings. These guys, these skeleton guys, if you look here, I'm going to just wiggle this around. If you look up here, like a lot of these pants and torso and legs bits, some of the actual Vampire Count skeletons have a lot more armor and clothing on them than the standard Tomb King skeletons. So I got those 2 groups of 20, which I'm going to have to, like I said, rebase. And then I also got a group of 20 skeleton archers, which they don't even make skeleton archers that I know of for Vampire Counts. But I'll be able to use those guys now as my archers, because it's always good, I've found lately, at least through Age of Sigmar, there's not, especially in my Nurgle army, there's very little that has range attack. There's very little melee, or shooting attack. So I've been looking at anything new that I get. I'm always looking. I'm like, well, can I find some sort of shooting? Because that would be great. And so, yeah, these archers are going to be great. So I've got the guys I've already talked about before. I've got the Cairn Wraith that's already painted that you've seen in the video about green stuff, liquid green stuff. I've got the Necromancer because I just thought he was cool. I've got 10 skeletons just like these already done. I'll be adding these 10 skeletons from the Start Collecting box. Then that'll be a group of 20, and they'll all be sword and shield, not the spear. Then I got 2 groups of spear and shield skeletons. I've got a group of 20, what did I just say, archer skeletons. And then, well, now I've got Manfred on the big skeletal horse thing that I'll be building. So that'll be a cool guy to kind of go with. Not this guy, but, you know, we'll just get rid of this dude here, put Manfred on that thing. It'll be awesome. I'm going to have either Hex Wraiths or Blood Knights, Black Knights, whatever they're called. I think the Blood Knights are a totally different dude. And then there's these 2 other guys I've been working on, which I want to show you. So you guys saw this last live show. This was my, what do you call him? He's a white king guy. This is him not painted, obviously, but this is him finished, built. So I put him on a 32mm base. I've put some texturing on there. I'm hoping this is sort of focused. And you can see that I did the liquid green stuff to his cloak because I really wanted it to have an interesting texture. So once this is all painted, I think it's going to look really kind of cool. I used a different technique than I did in my original video. In my original video about liquid green stuff, I said use a really crappy old brush and stipple. And I will be perfectly honest with you, when I was going to do this down in the basement about a week and a half ago, I couldn't find my crappy old brush. Like, it just literally was not within arm's reach. So I just grabbed a toothpick and I just kind of clipped off the real pointy part, so it was just basically like a very small toothpick stick. I think overseas you guys call them cocktail sticks. We could call them toothpicks here in America. Anyway, I used that, and I would just dip it into my liquid green stuff, get a glob of it on there. I would stick it on him, and then I would just, stipple it and dab it. And I got, I don't know if you can, and I got this really kind of interesting texture, which I think is going to paint up really cool. So I did it all over, as much of it as I could reach. Like, I couldn't get it way down in there, if you see past his shield, but that's just going to be black anyway, so I'm going to airbrush down inside there to make sure it's just basically a really dark shadow, so you're not going to notice it. But all along here, he's got the texture. All along here, he's got the texture. Yeah, I think that's going to work out really, really well. And so I'm really looking forward to getting this guy out on the table. I even did a little bit of texture up on his crown, so his crown can look a little bit more corroded and not so shiny. I'm thinking actually about doing some of it to his... Now, just as I'm thinking about this, I'm thinking I'm going to start doing some of it to his sword to make his sword look a little bit more corroded as well. Because he should have been in a tomb, you know? It's not like he's hanging out, you know, at the dry cleaners getting his cloak cleaned. He's been hanging out in a graveyard or a tomb or a catacomb. He should look grungy. So that's why I like to use the liquid green stuff. If you haven't seen the real use for liquid green stuff video, you should go watch it after this is done, because it will help you to take these guys who, anytime you've got an undead character who's made out of plastic, they always have a very smooth, lovely cloak. And they shouldn't. They should have something that's grungy and textured, in my mind. So that's why I started doing this with the liquid green stuff, and it's worked out, I think, really well. So that's just a quick pro tip from your Uncle Adam. Let me see if I got some other questions here that I can answer. Let's see here. With AOS measuring rules, spears are really powerful for adding up attacks. I think so, especially if you have a horde. I mean, if you've only got maybe 5 guys, then the spears aren't super important. But when you have 20, then you're always going to have guys who are in the back who just don't get to swing if you're using a normal 1-inch, reach. So yeah, I would say that having the 2-inch reach, and especially in big groups like that in hordes, really, really helps. So that's one of the reasons why I'm going with those guys. Also because they were already built that way, and I don't want to have to mess around with them too much. So, I got them for super crazy cheap. Let's see here. Most people that oh, hey. Hi, Dreddy. Dreddy and I were on the Andy and Rem show last week on Tuesday because Rem is out on tour. He's a musician, as it turns out. And so he was out on tour playing in front of large audiences. And so Dreddy and I were on the Andy and Rem show with Andy. And we talked about all kinds of stuff, including, the new AOS points and narrative and all the new stuff coming out this summer, which is interesting. Most people I know, including my club, measure base to base. Yeah, we generally measure base to base at where I play as well. I think at some point, especially with the new rules coming out in the summer, it'll be interesting to see what kind of rulings that they have for that. And then, people will have to make some decisions, but we'll see how it goes. Gummy Nerd says White King. Yeah, that's how you spell White King. He's not white like the color white. He's a White King. And yeah, so he's a great model. Let's see here. Skeletons are so cool. I've always loved skeletons. I don't know why. I think it comes from, frankly, in video gaming, there was a game, you guys are familiar with like Skyrim and stuff like that. Not long before, but before that there was a game Oblivion. Before that there was Morrowind, and I was either playing Morrowind or Oblivion. And I found like a door in the side of a hill, and you open it up and you go inside, and there's a dungeon, and it was filled with skeletons. And I just remember playing that game and just being like, well, why are these skeletons here? Somebody must have animated them. Some necromancer must have been like, okay, you guys are going to protect this place. And I just started thinking about it as I was like killing them, and whatnot in the video game. And I'm like, so do does the necromancer have to constantly think about them in the back of his mind so that they keep going? Or does the necromancer just sort of set them and forget them, and that necromancer could be long dead himself? And these guys are still just walking around doing rounds, and making sure nobody comes into the dungeon and whatnot. So I've always liked skeletons as the concept, basically. And I think that they're also super crazy easy to paint if you want to do a whole bunch of them quickly. I did a video a couple months ago, quick and easy how to paint your skeleton horde, and I will be using those techniques in painting my skeleton horde. I can tell you that right now, because it's a lot quicker. I'll be using the Krylon sand color as my main primer and also base color, and then it's washes and some highlighting and some dry brushing, and that's about it, and it works out really super well. Let's see here. The stats for the models are at the back of the build instructions for that specific model type. Yeah, generally I think that's the case. Are you going to use other Tomb King undeads that can look good in normal undead, like Carrions and Tomb Scorpions? Not Tomb Scorpions. To me, they look very Egyptian, deserty. They're scorpions in the desert. They don't look like vampire stuff. I might look at the Carrions. I'm not super familiar with them right off the top of my head. Let's see here. Nice model, Adam. Well, thank you. I enjoy building that stuff. Yeah, the standard Tomb King skeletons were originally the standard VC skeletons. Oh, interesting. Their only difference was that the VC had different shields, hand weapons, and basic medieval helms. Okay, so that's probably a good deal longer ago, but yeah. So, yeah, I guess, yeah, I'll be trying your liquid green stuff techniques on my Necromancer. Yes, I did that on my Necromancer as well, because he's got that big, smooth, really cool, interesting cloak, but it's made out of plastic, and so it's very, very smooth. And I'm like, I wanted him to look like he's been hanging out in a graveyard, so that's what I'm doing. That texture does work out really well. I like it. Yeah. Let's see here. The new orcs are amazing. Yeah, I've been seeing a lot of people buying them online. Most of the start collecting boxes are very good deals. Skeletons are the best armies in video games. So satisfying to smash. It is fun when they fall apart and you just hear bone noises. That's a good time. Or they turn to dust. That's pretty cool too. Let's see here. What size games do you enjoy playing the most in AOS? Gosh, that's a good question. I generally will play, lately we've been playing games of about 20 to 30 models. That's about it. I have a tendency lately to play with a friend of mine who runs alternately either River Trolls or Chaos Trolls, depending on what he's still trying to figure out if he's going Destruction or if he's going Chaos. So sometimes he tests out River Trolls, sometimes he tests out Chaos Trolls. They're only a little bit different, frankly. They're super crazy, stupid, tough, both flavors, but one's a little bit more than the other. So he's been messing with that. So yeah, generally, just lately, all we've been doing is usually about 20 to 30. I think the last game that I played, which was Wednesday, yeah, I think Wednesday, I played a game of. I think my opponent. I had more than my opponent because we were playing one of those missions where, like, well, if one group has more than the other group by a third, then they're automatically the invaders or whatever. And so we just, decided to play it that way, and one of us had more than the other. Plus, it was a new army for him. It was Lizardmen, a different opponent. He had just started playing Lizardmen, and he brought as many as he had built. So then we're like, I had more guys, so we're like, all right, well, we'll do it that way. And that worked out well. He had a lot of bigger units. He had, like, I don't know, Carnosaurs and a God Engine or whatever the heck it's called, or Engine of the Gods, all that. He had a bunch of big dinosaurs, and then some smaller units. And those big dinosaurs were tough. So, does AOS tend to go more skirmish? I mean, from what I understand, you can certainly play with 100 models or more if you want to, but generally right now, at least amongst the people that I play with, we have a tendency to play with smaller units just because that's what we have. The thing that's nice about Age of Sigmar, in my mind, is the fact that you can do that. You can go with smaller units because, like, it was very difficult, from what I understand in general, to kind of do that in the old fantasy to some degree. I mean, obviously, you can play 40k with small units as well. There's Kill Team, there's Combat Patrol, which is, I think, normally like a 400-point game. So you can do it, but generally most people have a tendency to go with the bigger, 1,500-point game, 1,700, whatever, 1,750, 1,850. And I know that there was certain numbers as well in regular fantasy, 2,200, whatever, that kind of stuff, that people like to play. So the thing that's, I think, great about this, and the thing that I'm enjoying it and other people in my area are enjoying, is the fact that you can build smaller armies and kind of go from there. Let's see here. Oh, this is interesting. So, Gloomdready says, Adam, do you have any favorite scenario? Mine is the new Watchtower. The ritual is the worst in my opinion, almost unplayable unless people really tailor to it in advance. Interesting story. So the last game I played was the Watchtower, and we enjoyed it and we had a good time. Watchtower, basically, there's a piece of terrain in the middle, and one team starts with a unit and potentially also a hero on that Watchtower. That piece is a terrain in the middle, and then both teams kind of come from the sides and try to, basically play King of the Hill, and that was a lot of fun. And that worked out really, really well. The Ritual was the game that I had played the week previously with my friend who's the shop owner here in town, and he's the guy that runs a lot of trolls. And yeah, we did not really read the rules, the scenario, like, is in depth and like pay attention. We just was like, okay, so you set it up like this, and this is what we have to do. And then about 2-3 turns in, all of a sudden we realized, oh wait, this is nearly impossible for the attackers to win. Basically, with the Ritual, you're supposed to play the long way down the table, and at the very end of on one end of the table is a piece of terrain, whatever it is, a building, something like that. And the guys on the other side are supposed to come across, and they're supposed to get their general, only their general, within 3 inches of the building, and then on a 2-up, they can destroy the building. But the thing is that every turn, the guy who is owning and protecting the building, he gets to roll a die, and he gets from 1 to 6 points. If he has a wizard, for every wizard he has within X amount of inches of the building, he gets to add 1. He can't go above 6, but every turn maximum you could go up to 6 points. And once you've counted up to 20, you win. So, like, mathematically, in most situations, if you're paying even partially attention, you should be able to keep that general away from you for the 4 turns it would take to hit 20 points in most situations. So, yeah, the Ritual is not really cool. Whereas the Watchtower, yeah, that's a pretty cool, in my opinion, scenario. We've enjoyed that one. Let's see. I'm gonna go back and look at some more stuff here. I've heard that big AOS games can turn into big mosh pits. Well, pretty much any kind of game turns into a big mess. 40k Apocalypse games I used to play. I played in one once, and it was the first and last time I was playing an Apocalypse game because it was just a giant mess and it gave me a headache. So yeah, any kind of humongous game can be like that. But I've found, like, when we play 30-ish models, you definitely have like, well, these guys are going to go up this flank, and these guys are going to come over. Wait a minute, hang on. And these guys are going to come over here and be like a, like become a tar pit, and I've got this objective. And I think that, people talk about how like, oh, well, there's just no strategy in Age of Sigmar, and I think that they're not trying. I think that they're not really paying attention. I think there's plenty of strategy. You just have to pay attention to it a little bit more. Just because you're not pushing around guys in a tray doesn't mean that there's not any strategy. Hi from Brazil. Oh, hello. That's cool. Best game of Sigmar we've played to date involved over 200 models. Very much a narrative battle. Yeah, and narrative stuff is really super cool. So if you're playing a big narrative game with like really interesting kind of scenario, then that can definitely be a big deal. So and that can be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to doing some of that once we kind of get some more people playing in our local kind of area. In my local Games Workshop, the games tend to be fairly large. I fought 100-plus model Skaven army the other day. It can go both ways easily, which is one of the reasons it's so great. Well, the Skaven, it's hard to not have a ton of them sometimes, frankly. Like, I am still in the process of finishing up my Plague monks. I've got them almost all built, and then I'll have to texture all their bases, and then they'll probably get painted a little bit after I kind of get a bit further with some of these undead guys. Because like I said, I want to have 2 small armies at least to start, so I can start playing with like my wife, or I can start playing with other people who are interested but don't, have any models yet, and I can kind of show them the game. When I have 2 small armies, we can play smaller, quicker games, and they'd be like, oh, that's cool, and they maybe get interested. So once I have those 2 base smaller armies, then I'll start finishing the other stuff that I've already purchased, honestly, for both those armies, and keep working and building and go in that direction. Let's see. How are you getting past the electric football feel this game has? I just don't honestly see that. I think if you play, like if you just mash all your guys in the middle, yeah, you get that electric football. For those of you who are too young to understand what Cyberwolf meant by electric football, which I just thought that maybe some of you will, back in the day, before video games, there used to be like an American football pitch that was made out of metal. It was a toy, and then you would have these little miniatures, basically, kind of like the things we use, of little football guys in like football poses or whatever. And then you would plug it into the wall, and the entire thing would vibrate. And there was a way you could somehow adjust them. But basically what happened is you turned it on, it started to vibrate, and all of the figures just sort of all vibrated and banged into each other. And I never owned one, but I had a friend who did, and it didn't make a hell of a lot of sense. So the concept of electric football is basically like, well, we just have a bunch of guys in the field, and then we all just bang into each other in the middle and sit in a clump. And like I said, for me, my Varangard are always flanking because they are so scary to my whatever opponent. If they understand even slightly who Varangard are, I always run them up a side. I always send them up a side and then come at from behind. And then they always have to peel guys off to try to deal with them because they are going to be in your face. They move very quickly, and they're scary that way. Flying units, demon princes, things like that, you have to think very heavily about them because they will go right over your line and hit you from behind or go towards an objective or things like that. So there's a lot of, if you just play like the very, very base, only melee, regular ground pounders, they're going to kind of generally meet in the middle. That's going to sometimes happen, or they're going to meet at the objective. But if you kind of tailor things so that, if you kind of build things so that you understand that this is what I'm going to have to do next, and this is what I'm going to do, and these guys are going to be a feint, or they're going to be a decoy and do this, I think that there's still plenty. I think there's a lot of strategy in the game, frankly. Let's see, the Shark Lion Beast. That sounds scary. I kind of want to get into Age of Sigmar, but I also want to wait until there's a Wood Elf Wanderer or Dark Elf box. Not sure if there's a good box to convert from. My friend with the trolls, he is looking at starting an elf army as his secondary army. And he's looking mainly at wood elves, partially because he really likes range attacks. So he's looking at doing that. Plus he's an Eldar player, so he likes elf stuff, I guess. I don't know. But yeah, there's not currently, from what I understand, one of those, start collecting boxes for elf stuff yet, but hopefully there will be one soon. I think that'd be kind of cool. Because I get the feeling they're really starting to push those things, and I see a lot of them in my local shop. So let's see here. I do miss the old world setting. It's hard to get a handle on the new setting. Yeah, I mean, it's not even been quite a year yet, so there's that. And I know a lot of people are angry about the setting change, and I understand that. I was never super into the old setting because I never really played fantasy. So to me, it's not as... I don't know. I'm not as big into fluff. There are some people who play a game that they play because of the fluff and because of almost no reason, or no other reason. I had never really looked into that before. I had never played a miniatures game just clearly because of the fiction. You know what I mean? It's always been for me like, do the models look cool? Okay, cool. I like the models. Now, does the game play in a way that I enjoy? Does it or not? I mean, there are games out there that I really like the models, but I don't like the rule set. And then there are games out there where I like the models pretty well, I like the rule set pretty well, and I generally play those. But for me, almost never, at least for me personally, the fluff has never been super duper important. It's been nice, and I'll admit, I have read, back when I used to play 40K, I read 40K books. You know, I read, honestly, the Inquisitor ones, like Eisenhorn and Ravnor. Those were both super great books. And if you know stuff kind of about 40K, but you're interested in learning more about Inquisitors, those series of books are super cool. But yeah, it's for me, I know a lot of people, and I've been seeing this more and more in my comments, more and more people are like, oh yeah, really, I'm really angry about the fluff and how they changed it and all this stuff. And to me, it was never a big consideration. So it's interesting to see the other people, to them, that's a really big deal. And I mean, I'm not saying that it's not a big deal. I'm saying that I did not see it that way. And so it's interesting to see whether or not Games Workshop did or not. And like if they understood what they were doing, you know, to some degree. So, or what the outcome was going to be. I still have fantasy midis, but I'll not play AOS. Okay, that's totally, you're right. Let's see here. I think someone was asking if there's 40K versions of the starter boxes. The answer is yes. Not for all the armies, but there are for some. Yeah. Actually, at my local store right now, he's got more of those on the shelf than he does the Age of Sigmar ones. I know that there's a Tau one, there's a Tyranid one, there's Space Wolves, I think regular Space Marines, I think maybe Orcs. I'm not 100% sure. If they make one of these start collecting boxes for the new Orcs for Age of Sigmar, I bet you that'll go really well. Let's see here. I imagine any new Dark Elves won't look anything like the current line. Yeah, that's very possible. I mean, I think they'll probably mix some stuff in, but I think that they will be definitely different. Because from what I understand, those Dark Elves for Fantasy, that's an older set of sculpts, I think. So, yeah. They need more starter sets. I wish there was a Fire Dwarves set. Yeah, I don't know why, because the Fire Dwarves just came out, or whatever, Fire Slayers, they just came out, so I'm kind of surprised they didn't, you know, unless it's just a situation of them, like, well, we're making these start collecting boxes. I keep looking at them over here, but I know you guys can't see them. But maybe they keep making these start collecting boxes for models that are a bit older, you know, because this stuff is all over the last 5 years at least, maybe longer. But these skeletons are easily 10 years old. So that kind of stuff, I think maybe they're like, well, we need to push those things and make them happen, and that's what they did. So let's see here. Knowing yourself is your only... Oh, it scrolled. I don't know what happened. Sorry. Man, I wish this chat worked better. Knowing yourself is your only mission. I don't know what that is. Okay. Let's see here. Yes, I've seen 40K starter sets. They do have start collecting sets for 40K. Last game I played, first turn took 4 hours. 4 hours for the first... you must have had a lot of figures, or it was the first game you ever played, possibly. Our games don't usually take that long, and we do have a tendency, honestly, at our local shop, our games do run a bit longer, but that's because there's a lot of socializing going on. And especially if I'm playing against the owner of the shop, he frequently has to like break off and do stuff. I mean, you know, and like whatever. So that's shop stuff. He's technically at work. So skirmish games are great. Looking forward to the return of specialist games. Yeah, it'll be interesting. We were just having a conversation about this recently. It will be interesting to see if the specialist games come out as just single boxes, like the new Operation Overwatch or Overkill or whatever the heck that thing is that had the super cool Gene Stealer cultists in it, or if it's going to come in a box like that, or like a box like Betrayal at Calth, or are they going to actually go old school like they used to and come out with a box, but then also add in, you can buy this Necromunda gang, you can buy this, added figure, this HQ guy. I personally have a feeling that they're going to release it as a box with everything you need, and then that's going to be it. Because that seems to be their big thing right now, is they're like, hey, Betrayal at Kelth, boom, there you go. And you haven't seen anything else come out that's been 30K related, have you? I get the feeling that people are going to maybe be a little bit unhappy because it's not going to be like it was back in the day when you could buy extra Blood Bowl teams and you could buy all this extra stuff. I don't know. I hope I'm wrong, but I'm wondering if they're just going to be a lot of just like fire it and forget it. Like, here's the new box and it's been released. There you go, Blood Bowl. And then you're like, oh, cool. When's the Vampire Counts, team going to come out or whatever? And they'll be like, I don't know what you're talking about, because they came out with these two teams. They came in the starter, and that's it. And it's the game. So yeah, we'll see. Well, hopefully it doesn't go that direction. Let's see here. Hello, do you have any tactics for playing Skaven? I like to play them with Nurgle. I like to make sure that I'm using the Nurgle-based, the Clan Pestilence. And then that way, when I do stuff that gives off area of effect things, they almost never actually affect guys who are also keyword Nurgle. So that's how I like to keep my guys together. I don't 100% do that. I do have some Skaven units that aren't Nurgle, and then I just have to make sure to keep them out of the way of some of that, stuff. So keep them out of the way of some of that area of effect Nurgle stuff, because it will kill them. There is plenty of strategy in AOS. I agree, Joe Flavor. I agree. Age of Sigmar is starting the fluff all over again. We are living through the creation of the fluff. It's really exciting. I haven't read any of the new novels. I should look into some of that, though. I think that might be kind of interesting. I kind of look forward to any new Dark Elf models, though, since a couple of the units look oldish compared to the recent stuff. Hydra is still cool. Canada says hi. Well, hello to all of Canada. Let's see here. Stormcasts don't struggle with the ritual mission so much because they can use the teleport thing from the main box's war scroll. Well, yeah. That's the trick, is if your general for the ritual doesn't have teleport or fly, yeah, you're boned. You're not going to be making it to where you need to go to get your, to destroy that ritual. Yeah. Gummy Nerd says that the Stormcast line is ugly. I don't completely disagree. I mean, I don't know. They're not ugly. They're a little chunky to me. Like, I love the flying guys. They're super cool. I like the guys who have the bows, the rain. Those are neat looking sculpts. The standard guys are growing on me, but initially I was like, I don't know. So the one thing for me personally is I think I would have to paint them to be, I don't know, I'd have to paint them to be kind of grungy. Like, they're always, almost every paint job I've ever seen for them is always like really shiny and like polished and whatnot. And I think that I would really have to make them look like real, just like they've been out there for a while and they have not washed off their armor, because I just prefer to paint that way, which is why I tend to stick with post-apocalyptic games, Nurgle, skeletons. I like to paint that way. That's the way I like to paint. How about some Chaos Dwarfs for your Chaos army? Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure. Do you think the Battle Shock rules punish you for playing Horde armies? I haven't found out yet. I mean, I haven't really tried. You're going to get that. Yeah, that's obviously just numerically, that's part of it, because a lot of those guys are going to, and that's why you want to make sure you're laying down your inspiring presence at the right time. So you can say, okay, this big group of 20 guys who are going to go into this thing and become a real bottleneck and maybe stop this bigger figure, I'm going to throw inspiring presence on them so they don't battle shock. So they're going to be there for a while. I think you can control that. I mean, obviously you can't throw down inspiring presence on multiple units. You can pretty much just throw them down on one and once per turn. But it does, I have found that it does help. Like, when we first started playing Age of Sigmar, we were rarely using Inspiring Presence, and we were rarely using Mystic Shield. I don't know why. We were just constantly with the Arcane Bolt, And now we're seeing the force multiplication in... If you have a force that's got Mystic Shield and also Inspiring Presence put on them, they can be... Even a weak unit can be tough to shift. So we've been pushing that, and it's been working out well. We're currently doing a 40K narrative campaign in our local game shop that we started at 750 points. Already a lot of models at that low count. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. When I used to play, what the hell is it called? Combat Patrol, which is, again, like I said, 400 points. I used to still have anywhere from 15 to 20 models, which when you're first starting out, that's not too bad. It's not too bad. But that was a 400-point battle, and most battles you normally see when you go to a local shop, it's usually at least a 1,500-point battle. So yeah, that's tough. Good morning. The UK says hi. Keep up the amazing work. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it, Justin. How did you convince your wife to join you in this hobby? Well, I'll be honest, I completely haven't as of yet. She has played. She's a board gamer. She likes board games. She likes strategy video games. She loves Civilization 5. She's possibly upstairs playing that right now. She's really into... Lately, she's really into these train games. They're made by a company called Mayfair Games. Games like Empire Builder, Euro Rails. There's a ton of them. There's like a different box game for nearly every. There's Russia Rails, China Rails, blah blah blah. They have like a fantasy one called Iron Dragon, and they have one that's on the moon. I think there's one that's on Mars, and it's like a big board, and there's all these dots all over it, and then you use a crayon, and then you build your rails. You pay X amount of millions of dollars of funny money in the game to build your rails because you've got a card that says they need oranges in Idaho. Okay, well, I know that I can only get oranges in Florida, so I have to build rails that go from point A to point B, and then I get X amount of money by making my train make it up here and all that stuff. And frankly, I find it to be crazy boring, but she and several of her friends really enjoy playing those games. So she's got a background in kind of nerd stuff anyway. She's not into painting particularly or building miniatures. She does like to knit, so maybe she could make tiny little sweaters for my skeletons, I guess. I don't think that's a good idea. But yeah, she's mentioned that she's got some interest kind of doing this. And if I'm going to build 2 small armies, then I might as well, just be like, hey, let's try it out. And she's like, well, it's not my cup of tea. That's fine, but we can kind of try it out and see where we go from there. Let's see here. We always lost the balls for electric football, and we always said, yeah, they were like weird little tiny foam, super tiny little pieces of foam. The balls. We were talking about electric football before. They would get disappeared quite quickly. Let's see here. What do you supplement your Stormcast army with? I'm working on High Elves currently. I don't play Stormcast. I have Stormcast because I bought the starter, and I've thought about making them a 3rd army, but we'll see. I don't know. I would probably supplement by getting more of the flying guys because I think they're cool. I can't remember their names. Adjudicators? Prosecutors? Paralegals? I don't know, something like that. And I think that those guys are just interesting just visually interesting in the fact that they can fly and get around and do that stuff. I think they're cool. So I would probably build more of those. But if you were going to go outside of the Stormcasts and you wanted to add other order forces to it, I'd probably go Lizardmen because I just think they're cool. And I played against them last week. I played against them last week. And I think you could do some cool stuff between the Lizardmen and the Stormcasts. I think that'd be kind of neat. Let's see here. The Empire was dissolved. Witch King, they are now free people, and the Ironweld Arsenal. Okay. As a long Warhammer 40k player, I'm trying X-Wing, and it's a very fun game. Yeah, that's another game that I play. I don't really talk about it a ton on here because there's really very little hobby to it. You can repaint the ships if you want to, but there's not a ton. I haven't really done it, but I've seen plenty of people do it. X-Wing is a super great game. I think it is possibly the greatest gateway game to get people into the concepts of miniatures that exists. And let me explain that real quick. So at my local shop, there are a lot of Magic players, like at almost any local gaming shop. And a lot of those Magic players have gotten into X-Wing because they can buy a blister box, and they can cut it open, and then they have a ship. Put it on the stand. They've got some cards. Magic players love cards. They love those combos. They love the strategy behind that. And they can play a miniatures game with almost no, work. You don't have to sit down and paint and glue and do all that jazz. The stuff that we generally enjoy doing. I paint and build way more than I play because, well, A, it just takes longer. But, I just enjoy it a lot. I still enjoy gaming, I do, but I'm not a competitive player. There's a lot of people out there who, they build an army, they go through all that stuff, or they pay somebody to build it and paint it or whatever, and then they just go to tournaments from then on, and they're really just into playing. I'm constantly working on new models and looking at new stuff like that because I love to build and paint. But I also do enjoy painting or playing. Sorry, but the X-Wing, that has obviously it's selling crazy well. Linking it up with Star Wars was obviously brilliant. Everyone likes that mostly. But yeah, X-Wing is crazy. We're looking, me and a friend of mine who owns the store. He and I are thinking about starting like a tournament series. He's a much more tournament-oriented player than I am, so he's got that part covered, and I'm good at, frankly, event planning. So we're thinking about starting like a quarterly X-Wing tournament series that we'll do probably out of his store until it gets to the point where it becomes too big for his store. Then we'll have to look at renting someplace, and doing those kind of things. But we're looking at starting that up. We actually just talked about it last week. So I'll mention it maybe, here on the thing. And if you live in anywhere near sort of Wisconsin, middle of Wisconsin, you'd be, interested in coming if you were into that kind of thing. So let's see here. Yeah, so X-Wing I think is interesting. And, I have kicked around the idea. I'm still thinking about painting a couple of ships just to give it a try. Let's see here. Lizardmen / Stormcast did well at the South Coast GT. I think I heard that, now that you mention it. I was thinking Lizardmen just because I think they're cool, but if there's like cool synergies between them and the Stormcast, that might be helpful as well. Again, that's a totally different point system at that point, so who knows, but... Joe Flavor says Bolt Action looks like a really neat game. Yeah, I think there's some really interesting stuff built into it, like the fact that you're putting all your units, like the little chips inside of a bag, and so it's total random activation. Like every turn, you reach in, you pull out a chip, and you're like, oh, you get to do these guys, and then these guys, and it's total. It's not just like you go, I go. It's not like at the beginning of the turn we both roll off. It's much more. It's unit by unit randomness. And the thing is, so if you get like if you keep reaching into that bag, pulling out like, and it's mine, and it's mine, and it's mine, that's cool. You get to activate a bunch more stuff before your opponent, but that the rest of the bag is still filled with their stuff. So at the end, they're going to get to do a whole bunch. So it's kind of an elegant system that way. Let's see here. Malifaux requires less models for a standard game. Yeah, Malifaux is generally no more than 10 models, and it can be as low as 6, I think. And Malifaux is also a cool game with some amazing, amazing figures. Everyone used to always be like, oh, well, Games Workshop, they make the best figures out there. That's not as true as it was anymore. Weird Games, the makers of Malifaux, have done some astounding stuff, and there's other companies out there that are also doing some really astounding stuff. So, let's see here. Why not Neferata instead of Manfred? Honestly, I think it's just because I want someone who looks more Vampire County and not so Tomb King-y. I think that's really honestly it. Though I should probably look at Neferata's rules just to kind of see, but I think I'm still going to stick with Manfred. I wonder if X-Wing will last. Pre-paints don't have the best history, although I guess HeroClix is still trucking along. Well, HeroClix is still trucking along. There was a time where it kind of wasn't because the company went out of business. With X-Wing having Star Wars attached to it, being really, really nice looking pre-paints in comparison to, say, something like, HeroClix, the pre-paints, honestly, for X-Wing do look amazing. And then the fact that it's Fantasy Flight and they seem to really know what they're doing, I think it'll probably stick around for a while. I get the feeling at some point they're going to run out of ships to keep making, and that's the only thing I could see being a real problem, but... Let's see here. I got the Malignants. That's the word I was looking for before. I got the Malignant starter set. I'm going to paint them in a kind of ice blue theme. Blue, white, etc. Yeah, I think that'd be kind of cool. There's a lot more kind of ghostly looking guys in the Malignants, and there's more skeletons, obviously, in the Skeleton Horde. How did I end up with the name Uncle Adam? I don't even particularly know. It just sort of did. I'm not sure exactly. I've got another friend who goes by the name of Uncle Phil sometimes, and so it just sort of it just sort of happened. It just was in my head, and then I made the Uncle Adam's Pro Tips videos, that series, which I still do, and then the name just sort of stuck. Let's see here. I'm enjoying my Tabletop Minions red t-shirt too. Thanks for that. Gummy Nerds, absolutely. Yeah, I'm going to be doing, probably, like I said, I'll probably be doing another t-shirt sale sometime in the fall, and I'll probably only plan to do 2 a year. But yeah, that worked out well. I'm glad that I saw people at Adepticon wearing them, so that was a lot of fun. I've seen pictures on Twitter. People have posted pictures of them wearing them at like gaming events and stuff, and so that's a lot of fun. How do the rules compare between Malifaux and War Machine / Hordes? I want a streamlined skirmish for my brother and I to play. Malifaux and War Machine. I've played both. I know War Machine's got a new rules set coming out in June. Malifaux I'd like, frankly myself, I think I like Malifaux better. Partially because of the card mechanic. So you don't use dice particularly at all, I think, in Malifaux. If I remember correctly, you don't really use them at all. You basically use cards. And I think, like playing cards, like a deck of type, like playing cards. And it's interesting because you get a handful of cards that you can have every turn. So it's almost like a bunch of dice rolls where you already know the outcome. So there are times when you are going to do a thing and you pick a card off the top of the deck and you lay it down and you're like, that's not going to do the job. So you look into your hand and you're like, well, I can replace that 3 with a 10 and lay that down and then kind of go from there. So, yeah, I kind of like that. I didn't think Hordes was a skirmish game. I just need something that lasts me through university life. Yeah. Hordes and War Machine started out as skirmish games, but at this point, from what I've seen, they're generally 30 to 40 to 50 miniatures, depending. It's not so much like the reason I was interested originally in War Machine was because I liked the big robots, and then as I started playing and seeing people playing and stuff like that, I realized that you usually only had about one in your army, and it was a lot more troops machine as opposed to War Machine. So that's kind of a bummer. It's one of the reasons why I'm not as big of a fan of it anymore. Let's see here. Just built about 20 Malifaux gremlins. The struggle was real. Yeah, the models do look great for the Malifaux line. The issue is that they are super difficult to build sometimes. They have really tiny little fiddly parts, from what I understand. Yeah. X-Wing will last. It's an easy system, and you need 3 to 4 models for tournament. Oh, yeah. No, I mean, I used to play, not in tournaments so much, but I used to play against friends with 2 models. I used to run a Millennium Falcon and the Hawk 290, and had a bunch of cards on both of them to get up to 100 points. But it was a fun list. I mean, it was literally just 2 ships. Granted, one of them was bigger, but still. Let's see here. I've really enjoyed assembling my LFO crew, even more so them than the one Warma Horde model that when they switched over to plastic, well, honestly, I've never had a really good time building Privateer Press models. They look great when you see like the fancy painted ones by like people who know what they're doing. But the ones that I always put together and built were always sort of tough builds, frankly. When they were metal, it was tough, and when they were plastic, it was just tough to get rid of the mold lines, frankly. I'd never been my big fan of those. Star Wars out of ships? Well, maybe the recognizable ones. Oh, yeah, I mean, they'll keep making stuff up, but I think they may not sell as well at some point, but we'll see. Let's see. Yeah, the base rules from LFO are free now. You can download them online. Yep, and a lot of companies are doing that. Obviously, Games Workshop thought, hey, we should do that with Sigmar. Is the Empire good in Age of Sigmar? I don't honestly know. I know Bretonnians have got some like real good base models, from what I understand. Like if you take the peasant archers and you do a little bit of synergy and mix them up, you can do some pretty fancy shenanigans with them. I've read a little bit about that, but yeah. Let's see here. Between the 9 movies now and the side movies and I mean, obviously there's tons and tons of ships, but I'm just thinking 10 years in advance, are they really going to run out of ships or not? I don't know. I suppose if they keep making movies, they'll keep making ships, which means they'll be able to keep making ships for the game, so there's that too. Malifaux has been a very satisfying game to play, but it can be challenging to balance out all the model rules and the objectives. Yeah, there's a lot of objective play going on in Malifaux. That's a big deal. So yeah. I had to give up on privateer models when they went rustic, which is resin and plastic kind of mixed together. Just can't deal with the mold lines. Yeah, seriously. I built one of their new plastic, which is actually rustic. When it first came out, a Khador Warjack. Khador only makes heavy Warjacks. So I built one of those. And it was one of those kits where it can build like 4 different possible guys. And I was putting it together, and just the mold lines are just like they put the mold lines, they go right across like important pieces of detail. So normally you should try to make a mold line go across something flat so it's easy to shave off. Yeah, not so much here. So that was problematic, and I was not a big fan. Alex Williams says, I totally agree with Privateer Press mold lines. It ruins it for me, really. Yeah, I don't know what they were thinking, frankly. I don't know. It's just weird. Yan Lo's beard. I've heard the horror stories. A little bit of background. Yan Lo is a character from Malifaux, and he's a kind of an Asian-themed sort of, I don't know, warrior monk or something like that. And he has this little tiny beard. Now, if you think about a guy whose head is only that big, and then you think how much beard, the beard is a separate piece you glue on, and it is nearly microscopic. I'm being facetious, but it is amazingly small, and I have read online people who are like, well, I dropped it and it just friggin' disappeared. It's just, I'll never see it again. Or I glued it on sideways, or it's just, so, you know, the models are super highly detailed from Malifaux, and they're very dynamic and interesting, but sometimes they're sort of for advanced modelers, and more advanced even than me, certainly, and I'm not that advanced. Let's see here. Still waiting for a new steampunk dwarf in Age of Sigmar. I don't know. I don't know. They seem to be going more dragon-based, and for the dwarves. I don't know if they'll make a faction of dwarves that could be maybe more steampunky. That'd be kind of interesting. Let's see here. The PVC plastic just isn't a good material for models. I'm not sure why Privateer Press picked it instead of plastic everyone else uses. Yeah, I get the feeling it was cost. Maybe the Restic is cheaper to work with than the normal plastic. I'm not sure. Mantic's plastic is bad too. Mantic does make some stuff in Restic, but if it's Mantic and it's on a sprue, then it's the same kind of gray plastic like GW stuff, and I've had really good luck. Like their Mantic skeletons I work great with, but sometimes when you buy a Mantic product and the models are already like in a bag and they're not on sprues, then that's usually a Restic, and yeah, they can be a little touchy to mess with. I built 2 forces for Dead Zone, and they were all Restic, and I was like, no, but they were okay. Let's see here. Egan says, I've been playing Age of Sigmar for a while with a Chaos Nurgle army, but I just can't win a game with these guys. Should I keep trying, or should I go with a new army? I'm definitely liking the Ironjaw. Well, if you like the Ironjaw, you know, I mean, I'm just saying, you know, there's no reason not to go with like a couple of armies sometimes, just for fun, if you've got the wherewithal to do it and to stick with it and everything. With my Nurgle stuff, my Chaos Nurgle stuff, I find that strategy is pretty important, and knowing, like, honestly, the Varangard helped me out a ton in nearly every game. I know they're crazy expensive. If you can find them online for 20% off, they're still just a touch expensive, but they are a really super powerful unit, and people are very scared of them. So even a unit of 3 of them, just like running up the flank side of the board, your opponent is going to peel stuff off from the normal group, and just because they're like, I need to make sure that those guys don't, you know, get in my back area or whatever. So I would tell you to maybe look at that. Definitely Blight Kings if you don't have them. The hardest part I'm having right now with my Chaos Nurgle army is finding a good HQ unit, a good general. Gutrot Spume has got a terrible general power. He's not a bad fig. He's cool. He looks cool, and he's actually pretty powerful in hand-to-hand, but he's got a terrible command ability. The Lord of Plagues is not, his command ability is not super good either. There's a Nurgle Lord on Demonic Mount, which is an older figure. You're either going to find it in Metal or Finecast. And I watched another show, I want to say it was Vince's show, Warhammer Weekly, and they were talking about the Nurgle army. And they all were, the guys that were on that show, is a Google Hangout show, they were basically under the impression that they thought that was probably one of the best HQ units for that. So I would look into that if you're looking for that. Or just go out and get something big. Like I've got a Glotkin, which I haven't built yet, but yeah. Let's see here. When I lose in Age of Sigmar, it's usually due to summoning. I suppose that depends. We did some summoning actually in the last game I played, and it was basically just that, like, things had started to go my way, like, very quickly, and he lost a bunch of lizardmen, and then he basically was just able to summon them back up again, and then that made me want to focus much more on his wizard to stop his wizard from doing that anymore. It's not like he summoned, and then I brought in, 100 of these guys. He's just like, well, these guys are dead. I'm going to bring them back now with summoning. And it takes a bit of work. I think he took him 2 turns before he was able to pull it off, because the first time he missed. So yeah, but then they weren't necessarily a big factor because they had to be so far back and all the fighting was going on. So they still had to travel back to where all the fighting was because they couldn't be within a certain distance of where I was, and so people complain a lot about summoning, but I think in a lot of situations there's definitely ways to mitigate it. And if you're worried about summoning, then just kill the guy who can do the summoning. You just target on him and take him out. That's the way it works. Hello from Germany. Let's see here. Do you think Age of Sigmar is going to have a power gap? Some of the newer models cause 6 wounds on average when older models have between 1 to 14 on average to save. Yeah, it depends. I mean, if you look online, you'll find people that will even talk about the synergies of some of the older ones. And when you start to mix them together, like with my skeletons, so my skeleton archers, they get 1 shot. Unless there's 20 or more of them. Then they get 2 shots. Okay, that's pretty cool. And then this lad over here, who was also going to show you guys and had totally forgotten about, this is Krell the Undying, okay? And I think that's his name at least. I know it's Krell something. If you look him up, he has a special ability that basically his command ability is he can give a unit the ability to attack 1 more time per turn. So if I've got a group of 20 archers and I bring this guy within a certain distance and use his command ability on them, they're now shooting 3 times, up to 20 inches. That's not bad. When you have 20 archers, you're now shooting 60 arrows into the air, which can do a lot of damage. So there's a lot of different force multipliers like that. And finding the right synergies in this game are kind of a big deal. So let me tell you the short story on this guy. I saw him in the app, and I thought, oh, he's a cool figure. I want to see if I can find him somewhere. Well, he's not really in print so much anymore. But I found one on eBay, and it said that he was plastic. And I was like, awesome. I love plastic models. That's great. So I ordered him, and then he showed up, and he was fine cast. He was not plastic at all. Now, people who don't know might say that, well, it's not metal, so it must be plastic. But he's fine cast, which I'm not a fan of. It's fine for Nurgle stuff, which I've said many times before, because if there's like pits in it or bubbles or whatever, you don't care because it's Nurgle. That's the way they should look. But this guy, so okay, he's got these 2 spikes on top, that's got skulls on them. This one was busted off, so I had to replace it with a piece of, frankly, toothpick. So we'll see how that works out. He was also already painted terribly, really bad, which in most situations you'd be like, fine, I'll just throw him in some super clean and let him sit there for, a week and then brush them off. The thing with fine cast is if you soak them too long, they'll get really soft on you. And I don't care what you use. If you soak fine cast in water for too long, I think it'll get soft. So the longest I ever soaked him at any one time was like 3 hours. And then I would take him out and I would brush him off and brush it with the toothbrush and then let him dry out overnight. And then the next day I'd put him in for another hour or 2, let him soak, take him out, brush. It took a long time to get as much of the paint off as I did, and there's still plenty of primer on there, which I kind of don't care about at this point. Also, the axe that he came with was super crazy bent, and there was no good way for me to straighten it back out again. So I thought, well, heck, I'll just replace his axe with something else. And I started looking through my bits, and I found this is an axe that was left over from my last box of Putrid Blade Kings. And as it turns out, it works really pretty well. Because like this part of the axe is already kind of, the shaft of the axe is already sort of bent. This guy's axe was already also, has a bent shaft or whatever. So it just matched up. I put a little bit of a pin in there, some glue. I threw a little bit extra green stuff down here to try to make this, like the wrapping around the handle. I tried to make it look right. I'm going to have to paint it a bit more, I think. I won't have to paint it at all, but I'm going to have to make sure it looks better with paint because I don't think it looks as great with green stuff. And then I textured the base a bunch with some cork and a little bit of extra skulls, and I threw a little extra like somebody stuck this spear in the mud or whatever, that kind of stuff. And you'll notice also I did a bunch of the green stuff texturing to his cloak, partially because I just liked the look of it when I do that, but also because there was a lot of paint that I couldn't get off. And so there were spots where I'm like, I don't know so I was just like, screw it, I'm just going to throw green stuff over everything and take care of it that way. So I'm looking forward to priming this guy up soon and painting him and seeing how he looks. But I don't know. We'll see. He's got a big horn on this side, and this one's already broken off. That's the way he looked originally. That's not because I broke it off while trying to clean him. But yeah, this guy gives kind of a pretty cool force multiplier to pretty much any unit within a certain distance, and I don't remember exactly what it is. But yeah, so this guy and this guy, I think, if our friend the White King and our friend here, the Krell the Undying, or whatever his name is, I think they should work well together in these situations. So that'll be cool. Let's see here. I'm going to just catch up and see where we're at. Wow, it's really... There we go. Any plans to post a video of any one of your Age of Sigmar games? Yes, I do plan on doing battle reports soon. I just kind of need to figure out some of the technical stuff, like having multiple cameras or doing whatever, and microphones and jazz like that. But I do definitely want to have some battle reports, not just for Age of Sigmar, but also for a couple other different types of games that I would like to show off and do that kind of stuff. So yeah, that is definitely a plan for this year. Ironjaw models are nice. I've tempted to try and convert some for 40k. Yeah, honestly, I've seen a bunch of those. I'm like, yeah, if you just do some big shooters and some stuff in there, I think you could make those guys look really pretty awesome. I mean, orcs kind of look like orcs either way. There's not like, it's not like the orcs in the future are wearing suits and ties. I mean, they're all basically just using pieces of metal that they've like attached to themselves in some fashion, as armor. I haven't seen any great images yet of people who've converted the Age of Sigmar ones to 40k, but I'm sure they're coming. Pez says that I collect vampire counts. Do you think we're due any new models soon? It seems like we haven't had anything new in ages. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see whether they decide to release some new stuff or not. I mean, technically they've got the stuff they just talked about with the Flesh Eater Court or whatever the heck it's called, but those are not new models from what I understand. So yeah, let's see here. Tomb Scorpion and Age of Sigmar have ability to summon another Tomb Scorpion. Sure, yeah. But then you got to have two tombs. So, another thing about summoning, like, some people are like, oh, I'm going to summon a bunch of stuff, and they just want to throw it on bases. And I'll be like, no, if you're playing against me, frankly, if you want to summon a bunch of stuff, you need to have the models. So at the very least, you need to have spent the time and the money or whatever and built the models and painted them or whatever. But if you're going to be bringing like, oh, I'm going to summon this many Tomb Scorpions or whatever, then you better have them, you know what I mean? And then I'll have to deal with it. But again, the big way to get rid of summoning is to kill the guy who can do the summoning. Now, granted, in this situation, the Tomb Scorpion can summon another Tomb Scorpion, but then you just have to, kind of focus on them. So we'll see how it goes. I am checking that Krell guy out. Yeah, he's got some kind of cool stuff in the app, and he's a neat model, and I've had to modify him, but I enjoyed doing that kind of stuff. Need more notice for live shows. I keep missing them. It'll be every other Sunday, unless something happens or gets in the way, but in general, every other Sunday. So not next Sunday, but the Sunday after that. I gave a little bit of notice on the Facebook page yesterday, which was not as far as advanced as I would have liked. But, yeah, yesterday I was super busy. I got called from a friend on Friday who owns a comic shop and said, hey, we wanted to see if we could pay you to come and shoot video during Free Comic Book Day, which was a big deal here in America yesterday for comic book people at least. And yeah, so I was there from like 10 in the morning until 2 o'clock in the afternoon shooting video and stuff, and there was a zillion people in that shop. It was a line that was probably 600 or 700 people long outside, waiting to come in, kids and all kinds of people and stuff. And so there was a lot of cool footage from that. So I was busy doing that, and then I volunteered at the movie theater. There's a volunteer-run, not-for-profit movie theater downtown as well, and I volunteered there. So I was only home for a couple hours, and then I had to go back there, and we showed Scott Pilgrim versus the World. So that was so it was a long day yesterday, but I was able to sneak in at one point and make the announcement on Facebook about this and put that up and get all that stuff ready to go. Another thing that I noticed, this is just a little side note, while I was working on that, let's see here, a thing that I noticed as I was setting up the event and all that stuff, if you look at this, way up here, I'm moving my mouse, which you guys can't even see. If you look up towards the logo, it shows you the number of subscribers, and then right next to that, it shows you that yesterday, and this is a screenshot from yesterday, I hit 1 million views on the channel, which was a milestone that I was waiting for quite a while. So, yeah, 1 million views was pretty cool. I was glad to finally see that pop up. It only took just over 3 years. And the thing is that obviously there's tons of people out there who have way more views. But I don't know. I was just glad to finally hit 1 million views. I was pretty happy about it. I'm probably going to post something on Facebook maybe tonight or tomorrow about it, just to let other people know who aren't here at the build-in chat. But yeah, you guys are kind of hearing about it first if you've been paying attention. It's 1 million views, which I'm really happy about. I'm looking forward to it, and I'll be hitting, it looks like, 20,000 subscribers in about, by the end of this upcoming week at the very latest, if not in the first couple of days of this upcoming week. It took me 2.5 years to get to 10,000. I hit 10,000 back in September, if you've been paying attention to the channel for a while. So I hit 10,000 views back in September. That was 2.5 years after I started the channel, and it's taken me 7 months to get to 20,000. So I really appreciate everybody who watches and everybody who subscribes and all that kind of stuff. It's been great, and I really enjoy making these videos and talking to people. I'm really enjoying these build-in chats, or these chats in general, these live shows, because I like being able to, talk to people and answer questions and do that kind of stuff. And it's just, I don't know, it's something that I enjoy quite a bit, and I'm glad that you guys are enjoying it as well. I know that I'm not necessarily building a lot. It's kind of difficult with this setup. I mean, I'm sitting in front of the computer here, so the webcam is here. The middle of my monitor is over here, but the other webcam is way over here. So for me to get in here and build, I'd have to be leaning kind of sideways and doing all of that, which is sort of difficult. So soon, my plan is I have to get an electrician over to the house and put some power plugs downstairs against this wall in the basement, and then all of this, not all of that because that's the dining room, but all this stuff is going to end up going down to the basement, and my hope is that I'm going to be able to set things up a little bit better, so it'll be easier for me to actually sit and build, but still have access to my computer over here and be able to read questions and things like that, and have a camera here and have this camera here and do all that stuff. I mean, I've got the microphone, like this thing here. This is, well, let me just grab... I'm just going to screw all this up. So this is my microphone. Okay, you see over here, this is like fingerception right here. This is, it's, I don't even know what's going on. You can see my finger pointing at my finger, and so yeah. And if I do this, see, now you can see me over here and over here. That's weird. All right, so I'm gonna stop doing that. But it's everything's kind of all on top of each other right now. There. So, ouch. Just tried to pull my headphones out. So, anyway, long story short is that I enjoy doing these. I appreciate, and I'm glad for the 1 million views on the channel, and I'm glad to keep doing these. I may change the name. Andy2D6 just recently was like, you should call it the Every Other Sunday Show. So I might just start calling it the Every Other Sunday Show, because I've had plenty of people also been like, after last Sunday, they're like, hey, you didn't do a live show on Sunday. What's going on? And I'm like, it's every other Sunday. So let's see. Okay, back to the chat. Let's see what kind of stuff is going on here. I am sad that in Age of Sigmar that they are old heroes like Krell, Archaon, but no Gratrek and Felix. I love those guys. I don't know who those guys are, I'm afraid, because I never really played fantasy. This is more my first foray into fantasy, Age of Sigmar is, so I'm not super familiar with them. And the chat went all screwy. Let's see here. Elstonation. I'm familiar with you. You're from the Chilling Wargamers, I believe. I just started an Age of Sigmar army, and I've gone for Undead as well. Nearly finished Manfred, and it was a real joy to build and paint. Well, good. I'm looking forward to doing that. Keep up the good work. Congrats on 1 million views. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Yeah, I'm looking forward to building that guy, too, and painting him. So that'll be cool. Oh, my goodness. This chat's been going on quite a bit here. Let's see here. Okay. I missed it. What did he soak it in? Krell here. Krell was soaked in Super Clean, which is purple. And it's supposed to be allegedly non-toxic, and I've had really good luck with it generally, but I'm always nervous about putting fine cast into anything, whether it's Simple Green, Super Clean. I'm certainly not putting it in brake fluid. I've had plenty of people go, "Oh, you should try, using brake fluid." I'm not putting fine cast into brake fluid. I think I would get soup, basically, is what I would get. So yeah, let's see here. This chat. Let's see here. There we go. We're gonna. Most of our stuff for skeletons is still square based. Well, the new stuff that you buy it, I think. Well, if you still buy the older skeletons in the old boxes, yeah, they still have square bases. These guys in this thing here, in the Horde, whatever, you can see the skeletons. Those guys come with round bases, which is really nice. Looking forward to the bat reps. That's cool. Will Sam ever paint a Tau model? That's a very good suggestion. Sam should paint a Tau model. Sam is a hell of a Tau salesman. If any of you have watched any of my older videos, you may have noticed that. Let's see here. Ask your local GW for round bases. See, I don't even have a local GW. The closest Games Workshop store to where I live is more than 100 miles away. There's like only, I think, 2 stores in all of Wisconsin, and they're both in the southern part of the state. So, yeah, I've been to the one... I've actually never been to the one in Wisconsin. The only GW stores that I've ever been to have been outside of Wisconsin, now that I come to think of it. Vampire Count's got a bunch of new stuff during the end times, and GW hasn't been adding things to the old races. They are more on life support with the 80-page Grand Alliance books. Allison says, I love your videos. Thank you very much. Imperial Torches. I have my doubts that you have, but have you seen that 3D printer filament can be sculpted after printing? Oh, yeah, I did see something. I didn't watch the video or I didn't read the article or whatever, but I have recently seen somebody talking about a new filament for 3D printers. You can print stuff out and then you can do some sculpting to the print. 3D printing, unless you buy like a super crazy expensive one, always is very stripey, because the way the 3D printer head works is it kind of just does layer by layer and builds everything up. So this company is recently, or somebody has recently made a new filament that you can run through your machine, print it, and then you can use tools to like actually shave off the stuff or resculpt or whatever, and that's cool. I'm going to try to find that article. I've seen it go by like in, I don't know, Facebook or different news feeds and things like that, and I need to check that out. I think it'd be kind of cool. What are my thoughts on mass small scale stuff? The smallest I've ever gotten is Flames of War. And those little tiny dudes, the actual infantry guys, they're super hard to paint, I find. I don't know what it is. I mean, they're easy to paint, and that you just go, okay, there's your face. But I don't know. I find them sort of difficult. So I'm not a super huge fan, but I do like little tiny tanks. So those are cool too. Pez is asking, Black Knights or Hex Wraiths? I don't know. I'm gonna have to look to see if I should go with Hex Wraiths or if I should go with the Black Knights. I'm just going to look at the stats and maybe also look at the models and see. Like, it's a kind of the same model, but there's slightly differences, so I'm going to take a look at that and see. Well, this is a while. Okay, so this is a bunch of people saying congratulations on the 1 million. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. Let's see here. So I caught up to me talking to Elston. Let's see here. I love these Sunday shows. Maybe turn them into more show and tell chats about current stuff and future plans. Building while chatting is pretty tough. I agree, it is. And I've thought about doing that, actually. I thought about doing a series, not a live series, but maybe that's not a bad idea. I thought about doing a live series, like showing like models I've painted in the past and talking about like what I did this and how I did that and this kind of stuff. Maybe that's a good idea. This camera's not too bad close up, so I could do that. That's not a bad idea, because you're right. Right now, at this point, trying to build while also talking is difficult. But to maybe show off stuff that I've painted, talk about stuff, answer questions over here, that's not a bad show. You should probably maybe consider getting 1 to 2 mods for your chat, i.e. to remove the spammers. Dreddy, this is honestly some of the first time that I've seen a couple of spammers, and so I'm probably with you on that. I may have to do that. Let's see here. Working on an old school metal rattling while listening. Any good Penal Legion Any good penal legion has a rattling sniper. I've been saying that for years. Actually, I've never said that before. But I'm familiar with the rattlings. I used to play against a guy who played Imperial Guard, and he had rattling snipers. And I don't know if he ever had a penal legion. He played a different... Did he play Jungle Fighters or Steel Legion? I don't remember exactly, but he did have rattling snipers, and he had them like modeled on bases, so they were all like hiding in bushes and stuff like that, and they were kind of cool. Gosh, now this is all messed up. Let's see here. If you are in the UK, Fairy Power Spray is very good for soaking models in. Yes, I've heard that before. I don't know if it's spectacularly good for stupid Finecast or not, and I don't know where I would get it in the United States. I guess I could look online. I'm using nail polish remover, and it works great in 5 to 10 minutes and removes all paint. And I've heard that. I don't know that I would use it on plastics even, and I certainly would not use it on Finecast, because I think you're just going to get soup, and I don't want to. That's not a soup that I want to eat. Use only nail polish remover on metal. The acetone will destroy plastic and resin. Jared, I think you're probably right. On metal models, yeah, I bet you it works awesome, but I would not use certainly not use it on these guys. Black Knights destroy goblins. Well, I think sometimes, I could be wrong here, but I think sometimes a strong breeze can destroy goblins. So, I mean, goblins are barely held together as it is. You have fans in Canada. Oh, good. One of these days, I seriously do want to go to mini wargaming and just hang out or do whatever. I know some of the guys who work there. Obviously, I do a live show on Wargamer Girls channel with Chris for mini wargaming. We do a monthly show about movies where we almost never talk about actual movies. So I've met a bunch of those guys. I've met Dave. I've met Matt at Gen Con a couple years back, and so I'd like to go to Canada and stuff like that, and at least go there and kind of maybe do some bat raps with those guys or something. I think that'd be kind of cool. Let's see. It's from Tested. Oh, Tested. I'm familiar. I don't think I subscribe to Tested on YouTube, but I watch a bunch of their stuff. That's with Adam Savage, who used to be on. Well, still is. Well, no, from MythBusters, the redheaded guy from MythBusters. He's mostly on Tested a lot, and they had a segment on moldable 3D or modelable 3D models. Hex wraiths. Oh shoot, this moved. Hex wraiths with the stippled and the liquid green stuff might look nice alongside the wraith and the crow. Yeah, that's a good point, because honestly, if you look at the models here, like I'm going to do that stippling stuff on, you've got these capes which have these great holes in them, but then they're so smooth and plasticky and shiny that it's going to be very difficult to make them look like they should, in my opinion, without going, and doing this stuff to them. You do this with the liquid green stuff and a toothpick, cocktail stick, depending on where you're coming from. I think that they'll make a great looking texture, and it'll make this stuff look really kind of interesting. So I'm looking forward to that. Let's see. What type of camera do you use? Well, I'm going to assume you're talking about the webcams. This one up here is a Logitech C615, 615, and it works pretty well. I like it well. The one over here, this is a Microsoft LifeCam Cinema, I think. The thing that I found, originally I bought 2 of these 615s, these Logitech, because I thought, oh, well, it would be nice to have 2 matched cameras for the show, because it just seems like it would be a good idea. Well, as it turns out, there's a problem with having 2 cameras that are the same. When I use the software that I use here, which is called XSplit, to be able to do all this fancy picture-in-picture stuff, which I don't have a bunch of it actually, set up. If I can do this, I can do this, I can got like a little control room right here. I use XSplit. The thing about XSplit is that if you plug 2 of the exact same camera into XSplit, when you go in to try to set the camera settings, it will not allow you to set both cameras because they use the same piece of software. So the fact that this is made by Logitech and this one is made by Microsoft, I can open up the adjustment software for both of them, and then I can make adjustments to each of them separately because they use completely different pieces of software to make the adjustment. So that was a trial and error, predominantly error, in buying 2 of these, because as it turns out, if you use 2 from the same manufacturer, you won't be able to find out, make that work. I just realized I'm wearing headphones. I can't hear anything. I don't know why I'm wearing headphones. I'm going to take these off. I think it was to check something earlier, and then I just never took them off. But I've been wearing headphones for an hour and 40 minutes now. All right, so anyway, so yeah, I use a simple webcam here. They're not super high end, but they're middle of the road, and then this one over here, and they work out pretty well. The light, let me get real fancy here for a second. Okay, so you've got this light that's pointing, or this camera that's pointing down towards my guys here, and you'll notice that there's this bright light. Well, what this is, I'm going to readjust here. This is it's called an OT-light, and it works out pretty well. And I found that the camera just sort of attaches itself quite nicely to the top, generally. And then you have this nice light that shines down onto what you're working on. So the light sticks out, and this thing just hangs off the edge, and it kind of just works out really well. So I've been having pretty good luck with that. As far as for my videos on my normal channel, then I've been finding that I've been mainly using my digital SLRs. I use Nikon stuff, which I'm going to do a video about that someday because people ask me about it, but I'll probably be doing that stuff at some point down the road. Let's get back to the chat. Did you ever consider doing voiceover? You've got a great voice. Thank you. I have. I've considered it. I'm looking into like online, like freelance kind of stuff, doing some voiceover, not voice acting. I think voice acting, I don't know that I would be particularly good at, but voiceover stuff where someone needs like a voice in a video that explains about their widgets or whatever for business and stuff like that. I'd be fine doing that kind of stuff online. Sometimes at work I do have opportunities to do it, but it's been a while actually since I've been able to do it. So let's see if I can make this move. Oh, geez Louise. Okay, what kind of camera? What are your least favorite rules that commonly occur in tabletop war games? That's interesting. When I first started, I used to hate morale. I used to hate the concept of morale. Any game that I was interested, when I very first, years and years ago, when I very first started getting into wargaming, anytime that a war game had morale rules, I got really angry. Not angry, but I was just like, I don't like that. I don't like the concept that my guys are going to run off the table and not do what I'm telling them to do. You know what I mean? I've gotten over that because I see the reasoning behind it. I see how it's useful in a lot of situations. But at the time when I first started playing, I'm like, why would my guys take off without me telling them to do so? And so that was originally one of my least favorite type of rules or whatever. So yeah. MC1 Gamer. Hey Adam, have you checked out the updates and the new scrolls for the Flesh Eater Courts? Some nice new mechanics on that subfaction. I haven't. I mean, I saw the stuff in White Dwarf, the local shop. He always orders one copy of White Dwarf every week just so he can keep track of what's going on with Games Workshop. And so I was kind of thumbing through that, but I haven't really looked at the rules and stuff. I can tell you that I really don't like much of the models. Like, I just don't like the Tomb Crypt, whatever the heck, Crypt Horrors. I don't like that model very well. And the Vargeists or whatever with the big weird wings and all that, that's just, I don't know, it's not my thing necessarily, but I'm still going to maybe take a look at them and see maybe there's something in there that might be useful, but I haven't. I mean I'm sure there's stuff that's in there useful. For me, because I'm not really a competitive player, it's always about the models. Like, yeah, it's great if a model is like powerful in a game or useful or has good synergy, but honestly, if I don't like the look of it, it could be like the most powerful unit in the game, and I will probably not field it if I really hate the look. So, that's doesn't necessarily do well for me sometimes in the things that I do as far as gaming, but it's the way I work. So let's see if I can figure out how to scroll this without breaking everything. There is acetone-free nail polish remover, which apparently works well on plastic. Haven't tried it myself, though. Yeah, I'm familiar with that stuff too, Dreddy. I should look into it. See, I gotta figure out the... See, like if I scroll the wheel, it moves too much, but if I try to click on the up and down arrow, it moves too much as well. It's a bummer. Hey, I'm from the Middle East and I actually just got into Warhammer. 40K. Oh, that's cool. Hello from the Middle East. I don't know that I've had anybody from the Middle East before who's mentioned that they're from the Middle East. Let's see here. Had no problems with Fairy Power Spray cleaning, removing paint from Finecast, but Fairy changed their recipe lately, and now it's not even good for its intended purpose. Oh, well, that sucks. I wonder why they would do that. For paint removal, I would say Badger Sandblaster. I don't know if I would use a Sandblaster on Finecast. Maybe. Nope, then I lost it. Dang it. I interviewed Matt from Mini Wargaming at their place in Canada. Oh, yeah. No, I got along well with Matt and Dave. I've talked more to Dave than I have Matt. I've only really talked to Matt maybe one time, maybe twice. Yeah. But Dave, we've chatted online. Actually, I'll be seeing Dave at Valhalla in Utah in October, so I'm looking forward to that. I'll be seeing Chris there as well. I haven't saw Chris at Adepticon. Matt and Dave were not able to make it to Adepticon this year. Let's see here. Sorry for the spelling and the Swedish doctor. Let's see if I can scroll this here. The headphones make you look like you knew what you were doing, kind of like how goggles make everything steampunk. Yeah, well, see, the thing is the last time that I did a live show, I had to listen to other people. You know, I was on with Dreddy and Andy and stuff like that, but with you guys, I'm reading stuff, so there was really no reason for the headphones, but anyway. I sadly have to leave. Need to catch up on the rest of the show later. Bye, Adam, and everyone enjoy your Sunday. Goodbye, Dreddy. We'll see you later. Any more builds? I'm looking forward to seeing how Arkin, Manfred, Nefertata builds. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it too. Someone just recently mentioned that they really enjoyed the build and the paint, so I'm looking forward to that. And I'll probably talk about it here. Like I said, I don't know that I'll actually build it here on camera. I think in the future going forward, it's gonna be more talking about models and then actually building them, at least until I can kind of get my camera stuff all figured out. But yeah. MC1 Gamer says, I agree about the aesthetic, Adam. Same with me. If I hate the look, I just convert it up to my liking or similar size, of course, and fit my army's theme. But the looks are what edge me too. Yeah, I did find online. I found a Terrorgeist on eBay. A guy had half built it, half primed it. It was half apart and half together, and so I got it for super cheap. And I'm gonna have to do some modifications to it to make it work. But, I like the look of the model, although I might want to tweak his wings. He's got that same GW thing where the wings all go up. Instead of, I don't know why. They always have their guys, bending way over, and then their wings are sticking up at funny angles, and it just looks odd. So I might modify that a little bit, but, yeah. Let's see here. Have you heard of Dystopian Wars? Have you played or shown any interest in it? I heard of Dystopian Wars a couple years ago. I've never known anybody who's played it. I think there's the ship one, right? Because there's Dystopian Wars, there's Firestorm Armada, and then there's another one. They're all by Spartan Games? I could be wrong. Some people around here played Firestorm Armada for a little while, but otherwise I haven't played. I think I played a demo of... Excuse me. I think I played a demo of the Firestorm Armada someplace, possibly Gen Con several years ago, but I've not played any of those. Team Captain America or Team Iron Man? I haven't seen it yet. My wife and I are hoping to go this upcoming week. We've been very busy today, or this week, and then of course today is Mother's Day, so we're going to be busy all day on that too. Models have to be cool, otherwise it'll be a bore painting 20 troops you don't care about. Yeah, no, definitely. I agree with that. I mean, looking down the barrel of 20, 40... another 70-ish skeletons to get through. Yeah, that's going to be some work, but they can be quick painted. I'm going to use the technique that I had in that video that I did a while back about how to paint your skeleton horde. I'm going to be gluing them onto paint sticks, the stirrers, that you use for house paint, which I also did a video about, so that'll help fire them through quick. But yeah, I am a little concerned about having to crank through them. I think I'm going to do one unit 20 first, and then I'll let those, and then I'll work on something else, or I don't know. We'll see how it's going to work out, but I don't want to obviously do all of them at once because that would stink. That would be really rough. Let's see here. If you're building a Death Army, Graveguard are a good troop choice. Yeah, the sheet that comes in the Skeleton Horde box says, oh, hey, you should maybe think about Graveguard. Why not? And they are kind of cool looking, so I might look into them and look at their stats and see what they're doing. Any recommended Troll Bloods kits? I don't know anything about Troll Bloods. That's from Hordes. Other than, okay, so I know they're from Hordes. And I know that I played against Painter Sam, who has a Troll Bloods army. And anytime you kill one of those guys on a 5 or 6, they get back up. So that was sort of a bummer from the person who has to play against him. So yeah, other than that, and I know that they're blue. And for some reason, a lot of them wear kilts or something with like a tartan. So that's all I really know about Troll Bloods. I heard that Hordes have boring builds, but some of their models. Wow. I've never built... Well, I've built War Machine ones. I've never built a Hordes model, so I don't know. But the War Machine ones, some of them are a little tough to build. But yeah, the models do look... When you see somebody like Sam, or like Tom Ailes, who I interviewed back in February 2014, who's also a friend of ours around here, is a friend of Sam and I. When you see somebody like them build stuff and paint stuff from Privateer Press, I mean, Tom won the P3 Grandmaster Award at Gen Con in 2015, this past Gen Con, and Sam won it the year before that. So when you see stuff painted and built and whatever and modeled by those guys, those models look amazing. When I put them together, I find them to be a little lacking sometimes. So I don't know. I mean, that's kind of the case, I guess, with nearly any model. But yeah, it's difficult. Let's see here. What else we got? Yes, it's all by Spartan Games, talking about Dystopian Wars. Dystopian has land ships, airships, and sea ships. Oh, that's interesting. Each can be played in the same game, but naval games are by far the most popular. I think the naval games, were they the first? Was that the first stuff that they came out with for that? And then maybe they added the other things later? That could be partially why it's more popular. Let's see. Will you be continuing your tutorials on airbrushing? I really want to do more, but I have no skill. Yes, I have got plans on the next one. The first one was just about an intro, about what kind of airbrush you might want to look for, and like, you know, what kind of compressor and stuff like that. The second one was about safety, because in the first one, tons of people asked me about safety, so I thought, well, I better do one about safety. The next one is going to be more, I think, a little bit more about technique. Also, this upcoming Tuesday, you won't see this for a while, but this upcoming Tuesday, I'm going to be doing some tutorials with Sam again. Like, again, you won't see them actually come out on the channel for a while, but we'll be shooting them this Tuesday, and he said that he wants to do some stuff about airbrush as well. So you're going to be getting some, you know, beginnery more stuff airbrushing from me, and then you'll see some maybe more intermediate and higher stuff from Sam coming up. So yeah, airbrushing is definitely a thing that we're going to keep talking about here on the channel. Any ideas for storage for all the stuff associated with the hobby? My office is filling with little tubs of scatter bits, and I'm not keen on the clutter. And hello from Scotland. Well, hello. I'm not particularly keen on clutter, but I do seem to... I hope to think that I thrive in clutter. I do live in clutter. Like I can't even show you like a single image of what's going on right down in the basement right now, because it is a unholy mess. That seems to be the way that I kind of work. Little plastic tubs that like food comes in, you know, that you, rather than throwing away, you can recycle them. I'm starting to do more and more of that, like things that have like a lid, you know, I'm taking those things, I'm like, okay, this is now going to be gravel, this is going to be, you know, whatever. As far as my bits and things like that are concerned, I have a tendency to buy these plastic organizers. They come in tons of different sizes. They're clear plastic. They have a lid on them, little compartments. They're usually used for fishing, you know, or stuff like that. I buy tons of those. Well, not tons. I buy plenty of those, and then I put bits in there. So like back when I played 40K especially, I'd have like one little chamber. It was just all shoulder pads, and this one was just all heads, and this one was all just plasma guns or whatever. And you can do the same type of thing for, obviously, for pretty much any game that uses bits. Most, like, bits themselves is basically a Games Workshop thing. There's very little bits involved in games like, say, War Machine, because you build the War Machine guys the way you build them, and there's not a lot of, I don't want to say there's not customization, because people do obviously do it, but there's not as much. You pretty much build this unit and they go together one way, whereas in something like, you know, 40K, a commander can have, geez Louise, you know, a captain can have all kinds of different weapons, pistols and plasma pistols and swords and axes and all kinds of junks, and you get so many extra parts in any given, you know, I mean, you get so many extra parts so frequently. So yeah, if you're playing Games Workshop stuff, you're going to have tons of extra bits. If you're playing other games, you may not have as many because you just don't have the need to customize as much. Let's see here. I'm going to do... Let's see. Scrolling. My goodness. Any recommended Trollbloods kits? Okay, we're caught up. See, the chat has the scrolling up and down arrows, but in the bottom, it covers up the arrow and says, "Oh, click here to go to the bottom," and then you can't scroll, and I really hate it. Let's see here. Hello from Scotland. Troll toughness has really been nerfed. You will be denied it a lot when 3rd edition comes out. Well, as a person who's played against some Trollbloods in Worm Hordes, I'm sort of glad about that, frankly. Let's see here. As a fellow denizen of the frozen hellscape that is Wisconsin, what is your favorite locally brewed beer? Ooh, beer. I'm not super a big beer drinker. My wife is a bigger beer drinker than I am. She likes a lot of craft brews and things like that. And there's zillions of craft brews around here just because of, Wisconsin. Lately I've been much more of a bourbon drinker myself, which is obviously not made here. Well, not much made here. Bourbon has to be made in America. I read that. Like, for bourbon to be bourbon, it has to be made in America. It has to be made in fresh, a specific type of wood, casks, I guess, barrels. Has to be aged in a specific type of barrel that's never been used before, or something like that. And it also has to be made like 51% corn mash, I think. I could be wrong on all those things, but they have like 3 main things that make it bourbon. If you were to make bourbon in Canada or Nepal or Nigeria, it wouldn't be technically bourbon. So anyway, that's just tangent there. Beers. I've generally been always a big kind of fan of like Spotted Cow, if you're going to go down that route. The stuff from New Glarus, that kind of thing, which you can't really get outside of Wisconsin, from what I understand. Have you heard anything about anything new of MegaCon games? I love Mercs, but the 2.0 rules have been beta for 2 years, and there's no new models. The thing that I've heard about MegaCon games, the makers of Mercs, which I have some Merc stuff, and I thought the game was really cool, and I've interviewed the guys before, both for when I worked at Beasts of War, and I even did some interviewing with them myself, I think, for Tabletop Minions. From what I understand, they're having kind of manufacturing issues. From what I understand, the books are sort of stuck in China, maybe, I think is what I'd heard last. And so, yeah, things are problematic with the 2.0 version of Mercs, from what I understand, which is a bummer, because it's a great game, I think, and it's got cool models, but yeah, they haven't really... I mean, making models is expensive, but they haven't put out any new models in a long time either. So I feel bad, and I hope that they can kind of get that stuff kind of figured out. But, yeah, I mean... I hate to be that guy, but I think, living in Wisconsin, we do a lot of beer, we do a lot of cheese, but we also do a lot of printing because we have a lot of paper here. There's tons of paper mills all throughout Wisconsin, and because of that, there's a lot of printing companies because it's just easier to get the paper made here and then just print it like real nearby. If you have to ship that giant roll of paper all the way across America, that's a real pain in the rear. But if you can get them printed nearby where you make the paper, why not? So we have lots of printing companies around here. I have plenty of friends who work for different printing companies. And when I see game companies take a book and send it to China to get printed and then have problems with it taking forever to get done or not being done right or taking forever to get shipped or to be just dumped off the boat in general or to be stuck in customs for a really long time, I think a lot of game designers have this belief that they just will not let go of, that you can only make games and get them produced, cheaply in China. And I know people who work for printing companies here in Wisconsin who are like, we can beat their prices and you won't have to get it shipped overseas and you could just drive here and pick it up if you want to or whatever. So I feel bad when you see these types of, problems with supply lines and stuff like that because it's happening. But yeah, so I don't know. I don't know the whole story. I just know there's been some issue, and part of it is I think because they're producing the stuff overseas, and there's just been other issues and stuff. So, I like those guys. I like Brian and Keith from MegaCon. They're good guys, and I hope that stuff starts to work a little bit better for them in the future because I think that's a great game, and I would like to play it more. But I was kind of like a lot of people where I'm like, I'm kind of waiting for 2.0 before I really pull the trigger and start playing. 'Cause if I start playing version 1, and then all of a sudden you guys drop 2.0, now I got to relearn it or whatever. So anytime that you know about the new versions coming, it can kind of slow things down a little bit until the new version comes. So yeah, that's difficult. All right, well, folks, it is 11 o'clock my time, and so we've been doing this for 2 hours. I really appreciate you guys watching, and I hope that you've learned something, or at least learned stuff from each other in the chat, at the least. I hope that you enjoyed seeing some of the stuff here with the skeletons and all that kind of stuff. In the future, like I said, I think it's going to be a little bit less build and chat, and maybe just a little more show and tell with some chat, that kind of stuff. So I hope you have a great Sunday. I hope that you, if you're in America, I know that overseas Mother's Day was earlier in the year. We're doing it today, so if you're a U.S. person, give your mom a call or go see her or whatever if you can, and that'll be cool. So again, I'll see you not this upcoming Sunday, but next Sunday, the Every Other Sunday show, and yeah. So I appreciate the people who come and check it out, and feel free to keep chatting in the thing after I'm gone, because I got to go and eat lunch and probably have to go get some shoes on and stuff like that and everything and get ready to go. But we'll see you next Sunday. Or no, not next Sunday. We'll see you the next time we do it, which is also on a Sunday, but it's 2 Sundays from now. So that's when we'll see you. As soon as I can figure out how to turn this off.